because we have people's lives at stake. We have their dreams, we have their hopes, we have their goals, we have their ambitions at stake. And if we do a good job in our leadership and in our influence, then we can affect, by ripple effect, the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people by the work that we do in this room right here this morning. So as publisher of Success Magazine, part of my job, besides trying to sit down with the best in the world and pull out their best ideas for success and achievement and pass them forward to you, is to look at the horizon for the entrepreneur. We're constantly studying what's happening within the entrepreneurial marketplace, economically, financially, the influences that might derail or might bolster the potential of entrepreneurs. So I've got a report for you that I want to share with you this morning, and it involves both good news and bad news. What do you want to hear first? The bad news. I thought you'd say that. So let's cover the bad news. The bad news is constantly surrounding us all day, every day. We are bombarded with the crisis in one country, the travesty in another, the economic collapse of one country or one system. We are constantly being surrounded with the economic news of the day, that things have never been worse, that these are great, tragic times in human history. And the reality is this: unemployment is at an all-time high, 8.1% still. This is August of 2012. If you adjust it to how unemployment was actually calculated in the Depression era, it is still Depression-era unemployment. They have recalculated how they do the numbers to make the numbers look smaller, but the real number of people that are unemployed today are Depression-era figures. 12.5 million people in this country are without an income. Then you've got long-term unemployment. These are people who have been out of money for 27 months or more. These people are in serious jeopardy. There's 5 million of those people that are all trying to support themselves or families. Then you have an additional statistic of 2.6 million that are what are called marginally attached. These are the numbers they took out of the actual unemployment number. These are people who wanted a job. They looked in the last 12 months, but not in the last 4 weeks. So apparently they are not part of the unemployment statistic because they haven't looked in the last 4 weeks. On top of that, you also have 844,000 discouraged workers. These people are classified as they're not even looking for a job because they don't believe one exists. These are people in desperate situations. And all this does not include the underemployment. There are 8 million people that have been put out of full-time jobs or full-time employment or full-time income that have had to go and take part-time jobs and receive part-time income, and their paychecks have been cut dramatically. And what you don't know, probably, or what you're not being told, is that these jobs are not coming back. These companies have found a way to do more with less. They've outsourced overseas. They've even taken some of their employees and hired them back on contract so they don't have to pay health insurance and all the other accoutrements that go along with employees. USA Today says that 60% of Americans believe that this is the worst crisis of our lifetime. So there's where we're at. So here's the good news to all of that, because I certainly didn't come here to depress you. But on the side of bad news, there's always great news. And this is a lot of the information that's not getting reported in news. See, it seems like a bad thing when you think about that once there were these big beasts that walked the planet, the dinosaurs, and then they became extinct. The idea that these animals all died seems like a bad thing, right? Well, not if you're one of the smaller animals within the kingdom. Because when the big beasts died, that meant that there could be some new kings of the kingdom crowned. And that's the same thing that's happening right now with corporate America. The big industrial age mechanism is crumbling. And this looks like a bad thing. It looks like all this unemployment is terrible and that this is going to put a lot of families at stress. In the transition, you're absolutely right. But what's happening with the death of the large corporate system is now the individual is being empowered. The individual gets a chance to take back control of their financial destiny. They're no longer under the system and the bureaucracy and the political will of the patriarchal or the good old boy system about whether you can climb the ladder or find your brass ring inside a corporate structure. It is now what I call not the Great Revolution, but the Great Reversion. Back to the way that this country was originally founded. You realize that every single person who signed the Declaration of Independence was, in fact, an entrepreneur. None of them were an employee. They all owned their own businesses. They were all self-employed, either on their own farms or their own trades or their own publishing companies or what have you. So we are just reverting back to what made this country great when it was originally founded, which is self-employment and entrepreneurship. And it is my contention that right now, particularly for those sitting in a room like this, that we are undergoing the greatest economic shift in human history. This is where the deck chairs are being shuffled. The deck is being redistributed. We're going through this redistribution and proliferation of wealth, which means expansion of wealth greater than any time in human history. And let me give you the actual statistics to this. This is the number of millionaires worldwide and the ascending numbers. In 1900, there were only 5,000 millionaires worldwide. 1950, it grew to 100,000. You can see it took 50 years to go from 5 to 100. 1980, at 10x in 30 years to 1 million. 10 years, it doubled. 10 more years, it tripled plus. And this is when a lot of people thought that they lost their chance. That this great wealth building that was going on within our culture worldwide or even within the United States economy, that it was past them because we saw the dot-com crash, we saw 9/11. People thought they missed their chance. However, between 2000 and 2010, we went from 7 million millionaires to 10 million millionaires. And just between 2010 and 2020, and we are ahead of the curve since this statistic is 2 years in the running here, we'll go from 10 million to 20 million new millionaires worldwide. This is wealth expansion unseen in all of human history. Why are you not hearing more about this? Because news, which has become a blood sport of competition, has, in order to get your attention, the only way it goes is to your base nature, which is fear, which is scandal, which is alarm, which is fear, worry, and the rest of it. And as a result of it, they are constantly parading the 6 most heinous, nasty, ugly, tragic, disastrous things that happen in the world each and every day, and then they're parading it morning, noon, and night to try to draw your attention. The same day, millions of wonderful, amazing, miraculous, prosperity, abundant-based things happen in the world in the same day. But you don't hear anything about it because it doesn't garner your attention long enough to sell you a Crest toothpaste commercial. But we are going through one of the greatest expansions of wealth in all of human history. And it's being passed from the gatekeepers of the few and being redistributed to the individual entrepreneurs to stand up and take charge and lead the way. So this is what we are reporting about at Success on a regular basis. We are looking for not what's wrong with the world, but what's right with the world. Not those people that are causing travesties or murder or scandals, but those people that are going out and doing amazing, wonderful, life-changing, world-changing things in the very time and place that we all are living simultaneously. So there is unprecedented opportunity. Unlike ever, there has never been a better time to be alive. There has never been a better time to be self-employed, never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. Your children, your children's children, 50 years from now, are going to sit at your knee and go, I can't believe that you were there when the industrial age died and the playing field was leveled and it was all up for grabs. And you were there. What was it like? That time is now. But you will only really appreciate it if you don't have any vision or foresight in hindsight. And so I'm here to encourage you to say, Take advantage every day, every passing moment right now. The window of opportunity closes a little bit. Now is the time. So what is the skill you're going to need in order to capture this opportunity? What's the number one skill you need? Anybody know? Man, I gave it to you in the first slide. We're here to talk about it. What is it? It's leadership. Yes, thank you. That was a big setup for that. It's leadership. Because you need to be a leader of people. As a self-employed person, nobody's ever, built an empire by themselves. Nobody's ever built a great organization, a great team by themselves. You need to be a leader of people, a mover of people, in order to be successful in this new independent, rogue, wild, wild west, new economy. So let me tell you why leadership, particularly in this changing world, why leadership is the thing that you have to adopt in yourself and that you need to develop in others. Because we are going through enormous change. And as Charles Darwin, who knows a little something about change, said, "It is not the strongest of the species that will survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." And we have never experienced more change as a species, as a culture, as a society, than we are undergoing right now. So there are a few certainties in life that we know, that we know, that we know, and those are death, taxes, and what? Change. See, all right, good. I got one person listening here. That's great. Death, taxes, and change. And right now, change is speeding up at a rate that is breakneck. It's almost frightening about how fast things are changing. Let me give you a little bit of the factors of change in which to watch out for, and why leadership is the thing of adaptability that you're going to want to harness, develop, and teach others. So number one is technology. In Raymond Kurzweil's essay, The Law of Accelerating Return, he says that over the next century, here in the 21st century, we won't experience 100 years of progress in this century. We will experience 20,000 years of progress in these 100 years. That's how fast things are accelerating. Knowledge. By 1990, it took 150 years to double all of human knowledge. It is now taking only 1 to 2 years. And by 2020, it will double every 72 days. When Eric Schmidt was the CEO of Google, he said if you took all the knowledge that we've ever accumulated in all of human history up to 2003, today, each day, we are creating the same amount of information every 48 hours. All of human history, 6,000 years of recorded history, is being doubled every 42 hours today. Globalization. We no longer have to compete with the people at your local chamber of commerce or the business down the street. The competition for talent, for resources, for attention and sales are no longer local, it's global. You now have to compete with every 18-year-old with a laptop in the basement of their mother's house at every single place on this planet. Every single person is now empowered to own and operate and control their own destiny. The other side of that is every single one of them is now your potential competitor, as well as your potential customer. Demographics. Massive shifts happening within the demographics of our workforce. The millennial generation, those that are born in the 80s or 90s, are the largest demographic to ever enter the workforce. And check these stats out. They will be half the workforce in 4 years. By 2020, they will be holding the majority of leadership positions in this country. And the existing generation, myself included, do not know how to work with this different demographic, which is the reason why the development of leadership, we're going to have 5 generations in the workforce working simultaneously. Never happened in all of human history. And we've reached a new milestone in U.S. history, and that is that there are more women working than men. The unemployment for men is 9.3. Women, it's 7.6. And stay-at-home dads have doubled in the last few years. 1 out of every 5 that have a parent at home, that parent is the dad. And so we're seeing a massive shift in the makeup, and I don't mean pun intended, of the workforce as we go forward into the future. So 21st century leadership is about adaptability. Have doubled in the last few years. 1 out of every 5 that have a parent at home, that parent is the dad. And so we're seeing a massive shift in the makeup, and I don't mean pun intended, of the workforce as we go forward into the future. So 21st century leadership is about adaptability to rapid change and expanding skill development. And this isn't your daddy's leadership. What it is that we know about leadership, what we've been taught, what we've seen, what we've experienced, that is not the kind of leadership we need going forward. Let me show you. 20th century leadership is about building an organization. And an organization was viewed primarily as an economic entity. And structures were developed, controls were set, you leveraged capital through pyramids of hierarchies, of people performing rigidly narrow tasks, job descriptions, and clear guidelines, clear incentives, clear reprimands if you got outside of your narrow task. Not the way it's moving forward in the future. 21st century leadership values human capital far more than financial capital. 21st century leadership values emotional intelligence far more than economic competence. I'll give you another distinction. 21st century leadership is about collaboration rather than control. And it is about leading through networks, whether I'm speaking to this organization or not, outside in the real world. 21st century leadership is about leading through networks and not hierarchies. And it's about aligning through meaning and purpose rather than structures and spreadsheets. This is how your daddy did leadership. Structures and spreadsheets. We will do leadership by aligning through meaning and purpose going forward. And it's about emotional and relational aptitude rather than technical or financial expertise. That is what our daddies learned in school. Technical and financial expertise. The MBAs were based on that. Going forward, leadership is going to be about emotional and relational aptitude. And it's about developing leaders instead of developing followers. And here's the competitive advantage. You want to boil it all down. As we move forward, deeper into the 21st century, you have one imperative, and that is to grow and develop leaders faster than your competition. If you develop followers, you will be passed by. You try to do it on your own, you won't even be in the race. You want to win, you develop leaders of everybody around you. You develop independence, not dependence. So I want to offer you a game-changing mindset shift so that we can undo the 20th century mentality that we've all grown up in. That's all we've seen. It's all we've ever witnessed or experienced. So let's give you a bit of a mental lobotomy here. Here's what a leader is not. A leader is not a boss or a manager. A boss tells you what to do. Everybody hates a boss. Everybody's in this room to probably get away from a boss. Nobody you're going to talk to is going to want their boss replaced by you. A manager tries to incentivize you to do it. And managers are weenies. A leader models the behavior of what's to be done. Period. They don't tell you what to do. They don't try to incentivize you to do it. They do it. And ask you to watch. Leaders do it themselves first. They don't ask others to do what they're not doing themselves first. Leaders lead by example. You've heard it 1,000 times. This is the most basic, but the most violated principle of leadership, particularly as you go forward in the 21st century. We don't want to hear your leadership ideas. We want to see your leadership behavior, your actions, your outcomes. Bosses and managers prod from behind. Come on, go do it. Leaders pull from up front. I'll give you an example. Dwight D. Eisenhower, going into World War II, D-Day, talking to his generals. He said, gentlemen, an army, an organization, is a lot like this piece of string. If you push it from behind, it will double back on itself. Stop pushing it from behind. However, if you take that string and you pull it from the front, it will follow in alignment. You have to lead from the front. Get out of the back. Leaders step out front. If you're going to lead, you have to be first. Press forward into new territories. Break the ground. Cut the path. Do what others are too afraid to do. Bosses and managers divide and delegate responsibility. This is how our daddies did it. However, leaders take responsibility. Bosses and managers say, you go. Leaders say, let's go. Leaders do what's scary or what's uncomfortable. And they do when others are not doing. When others are too scared, confused, or have lost hope. That's when leaders take the helm and carry everyone forward. And leaders set the pace. You've all heard this before, but it is true and will be ever more true as we march forward in the 21st century. The speed of the leader is the speed of the pack. How fast is the organization going to grow? It's dependent upon one thing: speed of the leader. Because the group will follow the lead. People don't go as fast as they can. They only go as fast as the leader. So a boss and a manager uses fear and punishment, whereas a leader uses aspiration, servitude, and empowerment by comparison. This is what Ross Perot said. Lead and inspire people. Don't try to manage and manipulate people. Inventories can be managed, but people must be led. So a boss and a manager help people see themselves as they are. Reviews, checks and balances, monthly reporting. They help people see people as they are. Leaders, however, help people see themselves better than they are. They see the potential inside. They try to unearth the best out of those that they are surrounded by. Brian Tracy puts it this way: leadership is the ability to get extraordinary achievement from ordinary people. And then Harry Kissinger says this: the task of the leader is to get people from where they are to where they have not been. That's why we need leaders. To break ground, to cut path. Sometimes just break ground or cut path for somebody's internal greater potential. Hey, it's easy to be a boss and a manager. You can learn that in school. That's what they teach you in school. How to be a boss or how to be a manager. However, it takes real skill and character to be a leader. And you don't learn that in school. You don't learn skill and character. That has to be fostered in environments like this. By the way, I see a lot of you writing frantically. I've got a lot of these to go. Would you like the slide deck?
Yes.
I thought so. I just wanted to make sure you earned your way in for a little while.
Thank you.
If you text that phone number with your name and your email address, the system's set up to email you the whole slide deck.
God.
So now you can just pay attention to the key things that you want to sort of get out of this, okay? So that's the phone number. Just text that phone number with your name and email address, and I will leave that number in the corner as we march forward here. All right? It's also on a piece of paper that you have at your seat that we will be going through in a second. So here's the problem. Let me show you the big conundrum. And it's probably like this very room. And I'm not going to point anybody out. You certainly don't have to raise your hand. But 75% of the people consider themselves a great leader. But here's the problem. 75% of people consider themselves in the top 10% of leadership ability. Is there a problem with that number? How could 75% consider themselves the top 10? Something is askew there. Or as Groucho Marx put it, only one man in 1,000 is a leader of men. The other 999 follow women. So if you're a woman, you're already far ahead of the game here. Particularly for 21st century leadership. Trust me. Your personal leadership ability is the number one constraint in what you can achieve in the 21st century. Of all, whatever opportunity you pursue, particularly what you are doing here. But anything outside of this room, the number one constraint to achieving anything you want in the 21st century is your ability to lead. So let me give you the 100% reality. Let me break this down. How the responsibility always falls on the leader. Like it or not, leadership has 100% responsibility at all times. Let me just give you some for instances. If a company gets in trouble, what do?
Blame the...
They fire the CEO. Team starts losing, what do?
manager.
They fire the head coach. The country's not doing well.
New president.
$1 trillion economy built up of all of these different organizations, all these people, all these different groups of leaders, but the country gets in trouble, and what do people want to do? They want to oust the president. Why? Because ultimately, leadership does have all responsibility. So if you're going to take on leadership, just know this. You're it. If it's to be, it's up to you. All the time, every time. As Napoleon said, there are no bad soldiers under a good general. So, building a 21st century leader. Let's now build you up as a 21st century leader. And then how do you find 21st century leaders? And how do you get the people you want to do what you want? That's what we're going to solve here for you. How do you get the people you want to do what you want? All right. So there are three very, very, very important questions that we need to solve for. And if you get the answer to these questions, you have the equation solved. Here they are. Number one, what attributes do you want in the person you recruit? What are you looking for? So, this is going to require some group participation. You can pull out inside, if you got a magazine, Success Magazine on your chair. Yeah, I had them put in there a piece of paper. Is there a piece of paper in there? You can pull that sucker out. Here's the question I want you to answer out loud. Think of the greatest leaders in our country today, the most successful people. They could be the late Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Oprah Winfrey, Carl, Michael, John. Just have an image in your head about who these people are. These incredible, great leaders. And then I want you to use one word to describe them. What attribute would you use to describe them? Say it out loud.
Integrity.
Fearless.
Integrity.
Charismatic. Visionary. Driven. Integrity. Passionate.
Communicator.
Courageous. Creative. Focused. Innovative. Okay, this is going to be one of the most rich experiences you do, okay? This is going to solve for all you need to become and all you need to find in developing yourself as a leader. So take that worksheet, and I want you to write the 12, if you could design the perfect recruit, the best person in the world, 12 attributes that they had. What attributes would you want them to have? And write that in the 12 spaces. Some of those attributes that we talked about: focused, passionate, productive, visionary, driven, motivated, responsible, diligent. Just what attributes do you want? Just write them down. This is really important you identify what to look for when you're out in the world trying to recruit people of great character. What character do you want? Write it down. Even if you think you're too cool for worksheets, just do it. Part of the process is just play full out. You can throw it away later and go, that guy's crap. Just do it for now. Just see what comes out, okay? Part of the process is just play full out. You can throw it away later and go, that guy's crap. Just do it for now. Just see what comes out, okay? You need some brainstorming. Throw out some more. Focused. Teachable. What else is on your list? Driven, passionate, teachable, transparent, likable, consistent, truthful, fiery, self-starter, hardworking. Get at least 10. I mean, this is like if you had a genie in a lantern and you could design the ideal person. You wouldn't want to leave any extra goodies off. So get it down. Okay, another 30 seconds, so write fast. Okay? All right. So now I have two other really key questions for you to fill this out. Number 2 question is, what attributes would that person, the one that you described with all those attributes, if somebody had every one of those attributes, it'd be a pretty incredible person, wouldn't it? What would they want in a sponsor? What would they want in a leader? What kind of person would they want to be in business with? All the attributes that you just described, what kind of person do they want to be led by? And then the third critical question is, do you have and demonstrate every one of those attributes? Crap. What I have just identified for you is 2 things. 1, the kind of person you're looking for. And number 2, the kind of person you need to become. So that you can actually attract and lead this kind of a quality person. You've just created your personal development plan. And I left you 5 spaces to take your top 5 leaders, and I want you to rate them. So you see the far right one has you, and I want you to take the attributes on the left and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how much of this attribute do I possess, but more importantly, do I demonstrate consistently to everybody around me? And rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. And then, later, as homework, take your top 5 leaders and rate them. You will do 2 things. Number 1, you will identify if you have some of the wrong people. And number 2, you will identify how you can help them to develop some of these attributes where they might be lacking. That is necessary by your vision of what a leader, a great person in the marketplace looks like, acts, and is by character. Okay? So do the rest of that as a homework assignment, but that will be your roadmap for leadership going forward. I promise you. All right, let's march forward. There it is. And the key question always becomes, would you want to be sponsored by you? You want that to be your response, but if the answer is, oh, not so sure. Like if you could walk in this room, right now, and you could go up and down the aisles looking at every single person, get to know and watch them for the next 2-3 days. At the end of the event, would you, out of everybody here, pick you to be sponsored by? And until you can say, oh, hell yeah, you got some work to do. and figure out what that deficiency is, all right? So, my personal mentor, Mr. Jim Rohn, said, if you want to be a leader who attracts quality people, the key is to become a quality person. Harold S. Green, who was the president of the ITT Corporation, put it this way: leadership is practiced not so much in words as in attitude and action. And our former president, John Quincy Adams, said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, and do more, and become more, you are a leader. Cannot say the same if that said boss or manager. Or as another great leader in history, Winston Churchill, said, I no longer listen to what people say. I just watch what they do. So I want to show you a video clip that I think is quintessential, particularly in this industry. Because you got lots of people who tell you what they're going to do. I'm going to set the world up. I'm going to be the best person you've ever recruited. You can retire on me, baby. Heard that before, right? And some of you might have even said these words yourselves. So this guy, Art Williams, built one of the largest insurance companies in the world in direct selling, through direct selling. He was a former high school football coach. So came from nothing, not schooled or educated to be a leader. But he recruited 225,000 agents, was the #1 individual life insurance seller, more than Prudential and New York Life combined, who were the #2 and 3, and generated $93 billion in revenue. We're talking about trying to hit your first billion here, which is great. $93.5 billion worth of business they wrote for this insurance company. He was the CEO of the organization. This is a classic talk, few minutes. Check it out.
Do it and do it until the job gets done. And then they talk about how great it is to be somebody they're proud of. We need leaders in America who can do it. If you want to become somebody, do it. If you want to go in business for yourself, do it. If you want to become financially independent, do it. I hear too much talk in these United States. Everybody can talk a good game. We need people in America who can do it. I go all over this country with A.L. Williams, and I have people say, Art, you can count on me. Wonderful. Just do it. Art, I guarantee you this is my last stop. I'm going to win now. Super duper. Just do it. Art, if I can just have one good month and get the ball going, I know I can make it big. Super. Just do it. Art, if I can just pay off this debt, I can really go. Great. Just do it. Art, if I can just sell my house. Do it. But houses ain't selling. Do it anyway. Art, I'm not making any money. What can I do? You just do it. Do what, Art? You do it, and do it, and do it. Art, I guarantee I'm going to win this contest. Super duper. Just do it. Art, I'm over the hump now. Watch my smoke. Great. Just do it. Art, I want to make it so bad I can taste it. What I do? You just do it. Art, I'm a vice president now. Can I quit doing it? No. Art, I don't know if I can keep on keeping on. I'm really hurting what I do. You just do it. Do what, Art? You do it, and do it, and do it. Art, all my life I wanted to be somebody important. Well, what do it then? Art, I'm going to save money so I don't have to go through this again. Great. Just do it. Art, I don't feel like I've had enough training. What I do? You just do it. Art, my manager don't give me no help. What I do? You just do it. Art, you don't understand. I was Mr. Everything in my former company. You don't mean I have to start off down here at the bottom and do it, do you? Yep, you really got to do it. Art, what's the primary difference between winners and losers? The winners do it. They do it, and do it, and do it, and do it, until the job gets done. And then they talk about how great it is to finally have achieved something unique, and how glad they are that they didn't quit like everybody else, and how wonderful it is to finally be somebody they're proud of and make a difference with their life. Thank you.
Hope you got the message. Just what?
Do it.
So what is the #1 quality of a leader? If you were to sort of break down all the different attributes that you wrote down there, What is the number one? In my view, the number one quality of a leader is confidence. As a matter of fact, we even describe markets as markets of confidence. Consumers have lost confidence. We need confidence. And it is up to the leaders. Their primary job is basically just to infuse confidence. Economic markets are dictated by confidence, and so is team performance. Team performance is dictated by confidence. If there's one thing you need to demonstrate to your team at all times, is confidence. A leader unearths confidence in others, to become more than they are, to illuminate the path in front of them, to journey forward farther than they thought possible by themselves. Probably the best definition of leadership right there. And the number one gift leaders can give those around them. What's the number one gift that leaders can give those around them? Vision, confidence. You thought it was a setup again, huh? Here's the number one gift you can give everybody around you at all times. And that is hope. You can give people hope. With hope, people can accomplish anything. When hope is diminished, when hope wanes, everything collapses. Napoleon put it this way: a leader is a dealer of hope. That's just what you are. You are a leader if you are a dealer of hope. So the unique quality of the 21st century leader, certainly by comparison to what we saw in the 20th century, is authenticity. Authenticity is the unique identifier, one of the biggest differences as we move forward in the 21st century. So getting real. How many people here had a stable, happy, normal childhood? Okay, well, good for you. My childhood sucked. When I was only 18 months old, my parents divorced, and I was handed over to my father because my mother, she just didn't want me. Matter of fact, when she first found out that she was pregnant with me, she got angry, and then apparently I was the one who gave her stretch marks, and then she was really mad. And after I was born, she was generally just disinterested. So she was just one of those women who never really wanted to be a mother, and thankfully for me, she admitted it to herself, and she just handed me over to my father. Well, my dad, when I was born, was only 23 years of age, and he just moved from the San Francisco Bay Area to what seemed like the middle of nowhere, Albuquerque, New Mexico, to get an overworked, underpaid job as a football coach. And it was just he and I out there on our own, essentially kind of growing up together. And my dad didn't really know what to do with me, so this was kind of his parenting philosophy. Just shove me in the corner of the couch, barricade me with pillows, and put headphones on my head to keep me quiet. You can see this stunned look I have on my face. I had that most of my childhood. To say that my father wasn't exactly the nurturing type is almost comical. As a matter of fact, it was well known around our household you kind of had to fend for yourself. And my father, he parented like he coached, which meant there was no whining, no crying, no excuses, lots of yelling, lots of cursing. As a matter of fact, if you read The Compound Effect, you know that he was infamous for one of his coaching philosophies, which was no matter how hurt a player got on the field, they weren't allowed to come out of the game. Well, one time this linebacker just gets creamed in the middle of the field, wobbles to the sideline, begs my dad to take him out of the game. He grabs him by the face mask and shakes him and says, "Not unless you're showing bone." And he pulled back his shoulder pad, and out from his neck skin was sticking his collarbone. And so every time any of us kids, were sick and wanted to stay home from school, we say, "Dad, can we stay home from school?" From the other side of the house, he would yell, "Not unless you're showing bone," and we drag our sorry asses out to school. Matter of fact, if you remember the movie Full Metal Jacket, Sergeant Gunnery, that was my father. And when I was 4 years of age, he married my stepmonster. And I did not mispronounce that. And they went on to have 2 other children. And because I was of the other woman, She did everything she possibly could to try to ostracize me from the family. I was literally the red-headed stepchild. And you can see that my father also cut my hair, which I think I suffer more emotional trauma from than anything else. Well, because of this upbringing, I basically retreated into myself. I had to be an adult from the area to what seemed like the middle of nowhere, Albuquerque, New Mexico, to get an overworked, underpaid job as a football coach. And it was just he and I out there on our own, essentially kind of growing up together. And my dad didn't really know what to do with me, so this was kind of his parenting philosophy. Just shove me in the corner of the couch, barricade me with pillows, and put headphones on my head to keep me quiet. You can see this stunned look I have on my face. I had that most of my childhood. To say that my father wasn't exactly the nurturing type is almost comical. As a matter of fact, it was well known around our household you kind of had to fend for yourself. And my father, he parented like he coached, which meant there was no whining, no crying, no excuses, lots of yelling, lots of cursing. As a matter of fact, if you read The Compound Effect, you know that he was infamous for one of his coaching philosophies, which was no matter how hurt a player got on the field, they weren't allowed to come out of the game. Well, one time this linebacker just gets creamed in the middle of the field, wobbles to the sideline, begs my dad to take him out of the game. He grabs him by the face mask and shakes him and says, "Not unless you're showing bone." And he pulled back his shoulder pad, and out from his neck skin was sticking his collarbone. And so every time any of us kids, were sick and wanted to stay home from school, we say, "Dad, we stay home from school." From the other side of the house, he would yell, "Not unless you're showing bone," and we drag our sorry asses out to school. Matter of fact, if you remember the movie Full Metal Jacket, Sergeant Gunnery, that was my father. And when I was 4 years of age, he married my stepmonster. And I did not mispronounce that. And they went on to have 2 other children. And because I was of the other woman, she did everything she possibly could to try to ostracize me from the family. I was literally the red-headed stepchild. And you can see that my father also cut my hair, which I think I suffer more emotional trauma from than anything else. Well, because of this upbringing, I basically retreated into myself. I had to be an adult from a child. My dad and I grew up together, and my dad was the type where it's like, "Don't cry. You cry, I'll give you something to cry about," right? One of those? So I was not very good at expressing my emotions, about really being authentic. I felt I always needed to sort of be protected. And I remember when The Compound Effect came up, I was really sort of challenged by the coach that I was working with to really draw out some of these stories. Some of these stories I'd never even thought about or recognized or even gave acknowledgement to. And I remember when Les Brown called me to write an endorsement for my book, he said, "This is the first time I actually got a chance to know you a little bit." He says, "I know that you were successful. I know your title. I know what you've done. I know what your resume looks like, but I never really knew you." He says, "I challenge you to let people know you, who you really are, your authentic self, far more so." And then he repeated the line that we all know: people will connect with your struggles more than they will connect with your successes. So if all you do is go around talking about your successes, which is great because that will inspire people, but you will not really connect with people until they know who you are behind your resume, behind your achievements. And so that has been my challenge. And I want to challenge you to do the same, because reveal more about who you are, not just what it is that you know. That's authenticity that really connects as a 21st century leader. You can't just talk to people's heads or only appeal to their intelligence, which has been my sort of mantra for 30 some odd years prior to this. You have to talk to their hearts. What's beneath it all, what really is driving even the logical decision making is always the emotional, heart-centered decision. You can't move people with logic. They can't just hear you, they have to feel you. And they will only feel you if they know not your title or your resume, but your story, the truth of who you are and how you got here, both the triumphs and the failings. These are the things that I learned. These are the things that I wrote down. These are actual words out of my own journal, thinking about who I needed to become in order to be a better 21st century leader. This is what will make you real and make you available to be connected to and able to influence and motivate others. My desire is to influence and motivate others to their greater potential. My revealing myself is not for me sharing my story. I'm the last person who wants to hear my story. I know it. I don't care about it. It's behind me. I share it to connect, because if I want to influence and motivate others, then I need to reveal myself and make myself more open and more authentic. I challenge you to do the same. This is a huge discovery that I made in trying to make the transition into a 21st century leader. So here's one way that you can go about sort of discovering what you might need to work on. It's what I call the jerk test. And that's performing a 360-degree review with the people around you. This is not for the faint of heart. I promise you. If you really want to take a deep dive into personal development, I encourage you to take this test. But you will be scared shitless to do it. Most of you won't do it, and you'll excuse like, I forgot, I don't have time, not that important, and you'll push it aside. But if you are serious about becoming, some of my biggest breakthroughs have come through when I've done this review, because you think you're kind of doing all right, or at least you're doing good pretending, right? You're putting on that good front, you think everybody's buying it. And then you start asking, you're like, oh crap. Either you didn't see or know that was happening, or it's like, oh, I didn't know you knew that, right? So here's the 360 review. Here are the questions that you should go around. Ask a half a dozen people. These are people whose opinion you appreciate and respect, number one. Number two, and people close enough to you that they will give you the truth. They will give you they care about you enough where they will give you the truth. The honest and brutal truth. People who are just acquaintances won't give you the truth. They don't have that level of trust. There's not that level of comfort. But people who care about you will tell you the truth. So here's the first question. How do I show up? When I enter a room, what do you think are people's first perceptions? What do you think people judge or believe about me, right or wrong, when they first meet me? Number three. No, that was number two. Do I think I really listen to people? Or do you think? Do you